I need to know everything, who and the what and the where, I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George, I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse, I'm ready for war, I'm coming for throats, to turn to a ghost, I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk. Gotta keep quiet, maneuver in silence, then let them in, chalk up their body, another one body, that's just how it go. I got some secrets.
Hello and welcome to JK+1. I am not your host, PTF. He's actually messaging me about the Breeders' Cup, trying to get me to, I don't know, carry this big piece of equipment. I don't know what he's doing. He's up to no good. I am your host, Jonathan Kinchin, and we're back. JK+1. We had a little bit of a break. We were a little post Saratoga, went on my honeymoon, and now I am back, and we will be rolling through the end of the year. Want to say thanks to our friends at Qatar Racing once again for their support of the podcast. Sheikh Fahad and the team, exciting stuff going on. And they've got Ever So Mischievous, who we talked about on this show earlier in the spring, who's won a stake at Churchill. So I think that that horse has a lot of promising races in the future. Also, get ready to see the big mare coming up here pretty soon, Caravel, getting back in action soon. So I want to thank our friends at Qatar Racing, and I'm not sure they have any runners at the Arc this weekend. We had talked about possibly having some runners, and then we were going to try to hide on the plane and come with them to go check out the Arc in Paris, but they're heavily involved over there for sure. So wishing them the best of luck Arc weekend. Look, we're gonna jump into this episode. It was a fun episode with the sale, the Keeneland sale that I'm sure most people saw and were aware of. Into Mischief, he's just a monster in these sales. He's a monster on the racetrack. He's a monster in the breeding shed. And so I wanted to get Mark Toothaker from Spendthrift Farm to talk a little bit about what they have going on at Spendthrift, also kind of how he got into the game, the unbelievable kind of super mare and Tamra, the daughter of Beholder, who's likely to be the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And just wanted to catch up with Mark and get to know a little bit more about what it's like to be a stallion sales manager at a big farm and what that role consists of. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Make sure you follow, comment, subscribe, retweet, tweet, all those good things. Share it with friends who you think might find it interesting as well, just in case they're somehow missing it. But let's jump right into it. My friend, Mark Toothaker. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, JK, man, everything is great. We've got it rolling already over here at Spendthrift.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I'd imagine that going to a sale when you have arguably the best sire in the world, it makes it for an exciting sale, huh?
Well, it does. I mean, in the Mischief, just to be here, to see where he's come from, from us basically, begging people to breed to him, doing, contracts at $7,000 and then to, see his meteoric rise, it's been crazy. I remember when I first came over here, I put something on Facebook just trying to promote him. And it was basically like, he's got a horse in a maiden special weight this weekend, and he has a filly in a Louisiana bred stake race. And that was really the highlights of anything that I had that I could really say about him at that time. We were all just, on a wing and a prayer, and, we were seeing some promising things from a very small crop, but, you never know until they, those things start happening. And boy, when they started happening, I remember in his 3-year-old year, we were watching the races, and it was Vijak, wins the stake up in New York, and that same day Golden Sense, wins one of the Derby preps out in California. And Mr. Hughes said, man, he goes, this is like better than owning them. I'm not having to pay the training bills on those horses, but I'm getting all the fun. And, from there, the momentum, started building, and it just kept building. And then to see him out there at the sale this year, those pedigrees, and to see him rewarded, the breeders that, just have kept staying with him, following him along, to see them rewarded, it's just awesome. I mean, they averaged, about 700,000 out there at Keeneland, and he had 15 horses this year for $1 million or more, and just it's an amazing deal.
Are you guys in a position now? And I'm fairly familiar with the breeding industry, but not obviously as in tune as guys like yourself. But are you at a point now where you're turning away mares, or because he's that high level, or if are you guys still pretty open?
Well, I mean, it's they call themselves at 250,000. I mean, when they're calling you to looking to get a spot to him, the quality of mare is there. It's just a matter of how many do you want to breed. This year was a funny year, for the horse business. We bred 172 mares to End of Mischief, but it was the first year that Spendthrift was able to, breed 30 something mares of our own to him. And, he's 18, going to be 19 when we start breeding next year. And, he's a horse that, we feel like every year that you get with him, you're just beyond blessed. We hope there's many more years left, but we're at the point now, Spendthrift wants to, breed more mares to him, have more progeny, out of our mares, because he just, you have a mare that, that's hadn't gotten a runner and she needs a runner, and you breed her into Mischief, and the next thing you've got a graded stake horse. So he moves your mares up, dramatically, and that's something, while we've got him still here, we want to take advantage of that. So, I would imagine, we would, try to sell somewhere 125, 130 seasons in him. And, the response out of the sale has been real good so far. And, Ned is working on his mating plans, but I think we'll wind up somewhere in that ballpark.
Looking at this roster, you guys have a fun group of young horses too, right? Like some kind of up and coming guys. I'm excited to see the Jackie's Warriors. We've already seen a few Matolis, Vacoma. Obviously, Omaha Beach has been off to a good start. Who are some of the young ones that you guys have over at Spendthrift you're excited about?
Well, I mean, Maximus Mischief, leading the freshman sire list. He was a horse that was 4 for 4 as a 2-year-old. We were chasing him like several other farms here were in Kentucky. And I flew down to Gulfstream to watch him run in the Holy Bull. And he just didn't run his race that day. He ran third, didn't look like the same horse, and comes out of the race with a bowed tendon. And, and it needed time. So it wasn't something you could bring right in and stand. So a lot of those farms, were off of him at that point, but we liked him. He was an End of Mischief. He was a big, pretty horse, and we took a shot on him, and he's throwing that. He's throwing speed. He didn't get the quality of mares that some of our other stallions, got there right off the get go, because he was $7,500. But they're out running. He's he just we hope that there's a graded stake horse out there for him before the end of the year. And he's had 19 winners so far, and he's got some more stuff, that I know is running this week. And he's been a, a real pleasant surprise. Omaha got all the mares. They're really starting to really come into their own right now. And they sold tremendous out here at Keeneland for a horse that had his first 2-year-olds to, see one go through the ring and bring 950,000. I mean, you're just like, wow, people believe. And, we're riding right in there on that, as well as that, we feel like that they'll continue to get better as we progress and move forward. We've got Matoli that you mentioned, Bill and Corinne Halibrat, just super people. So glad that we've been able to do Matoli and Yopon with them. And Matoli's got a very, very good filly in BB's Dream that won so impressive for Kenny McPeak over at Churchill a week or so ago. And she looks like a real legit Breeders' Cup, juvenile filly. And then, Vino Rosso banging away, got a bunch of winners, doing good. And he's got a horse, the Wine Steward, that's 3 for 3, that's going to run here in the breeders fraternity and a shot in a grade 1. And he's an exciting horse. Becky Thomas and I bred him. And so we've been, just cheering every time he runs, and he's just, to be able to be 3 for 3 and do what he's done. We look forward to this grade 1 race, and it would be a thrill upon thrill if he could win that and, punch his ticket to go to Santa Anita.
Well, I tell you, of all those that you named that have these 2-year-olds, first 2-year-olds, Matoli was always one I was excited about as a stallion. Any horse that can do what he did sprinting, but then also, just run outstanding in the Met Mile. I always felt, and I even had Steve on this podcast at one point. I always felt that he could have gone longer, but I think, Steve just said he had some issues that let's not change anything up. If he's good, let's keep him good. Let's keep him here. Let's not try to change things. But Steve was pretty adamant, thinking that Matoli wouldn't have any problem, doing a mile and an eighth.
Well, that's, it's what he said after he won the Met Mile. We mentioned something, would you go to the Whitney? What would you do with him? How far will he go? And he said, how far do you want him to go? He said, he'll do whatever needs to be done. But he said, I think I'm, just what you said. He goes, I think I want to keep him sprinting. I think that's our best path, to the Breeders' Cup. And, look, as I always say with Steve, I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame and I'm not. And what he says goes. And every time that he and Scott Blasey have told me about a horse, that they're excited about in their barn, the first thing I've done is run back here to Ned and Eric and tell them that, hey, we need to try to see about getting this horse. And every time they've done that, they've been right on the money. So we're covered our relationship with that barn, and Steve, he knows how to turn them out. There's no doubt about it. Just amazing.
And I would imagine when a farm, and I would imagine it's a conscious effort as well. When you have a big horse like Into Mischief, you want to try to find, those sons of Into Mischief to try to kind of carry that success. Is that kind of the plan with horses like Authentic? I mean, obviously you raced Authentic, so it made sense for you guys to stand Authentic. But is that kind of the plan, to try to find kind of that next Into Mischief?
It is, JK, no doubt about it. I mean, we're, we've got 3 sons of Into Mischief, and they're all in different price points. Now that may change, with the way Max is doing. He may wind up being the second highest priced one we've got, but Authentic, was just his speed was his weapon, and a couple of times when we tried to rate him and tried to go the lead and sit or something along that line, it just, we were taking his weapon away from him. And when you let him do what he did in the Derby and what he did in the Breeders' Cup Classic, it basically just run them off their feet. That's when he was certainly the most dangerous. And to have, he had a $900,000 colt, he had an $800,000 filly. He had 100 horses, out there in the sale, and he averaged 302,000. We're very excited. But we have, Authentic, who is the our highest priced son of Into Mischief. He's going to stand 2024 for 50,000. We think that's tremendous value for a Kentucky Derby winner, a Breeders' Cup Classic winner, a Horse of the Year. Excited about the demand that had on him. And then
pitch 610.
Hold on one second, JK. I got you there.
You're fine. No worries.
Okay. Yeah, my Bluetooth kicked off there a second. So we've got Golden Sense, who is, horse that ran in the Derby, a horse that won the Breeders' Cup Mile twice, a horse that won the Santa Anita Derby. He's just been such a solid sire for us. He's not the biggest horse. He's kind of a thicker made horse, that, shorter leg, that you have to, if you're trying to breed commercially to him, you have to breed a big mare to him, where Authentic is a big, leggy, stretchy into mischief. Golden Sense is kind of the other end of the spectrum. He's more of a blocky, stocky type horse that needs a big, stretchy mare for him. But he can get you a Grade 1 winner. On the grass. He's had so many good runners on the dirt as well, and then Max, as we talked about, and then we also have uh, By My Standards, and By My Standards is our first grandson of Into Mischief, and what a good racehorse for Brett Calhoun and Chester Thomas, and he's getting, we're pleasantly surprised to see that he's throwing leg on his foals, and so we think as breeders and folks that are pinhookers that are going to be out at the November sale looking at all these foals, they're going to love what they see in the By My Standards because they're going to be leggier uh, than the Golden Senses have been. So we're anxious to see what people feel about that. But we're definitely all in on Into Mischief. We've got Giant Mischief that just won impressive back the other day over at Churchill. He's a horse that we had big Triple Crown race hopes for, and then he wound up having a setback and had to go to the sideline, but man, he came back impressive the other day, and so we're excited that he's back, and look forward to what he can do next year, and who knows, maybe he winds up over here at standing for us in a year or two.
And then, one other one that I wanted to definitely touch on is Vacoma, a horse that really captivated my attention. He was such a cool horse, such a gutsy horse. I still to this day will say that from that 14 hole, he was winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Keeneland if he were able to get in the gate that day. I think he would have beat Whitmore. I've always loved Vacoma. I thought he was such a cool racehorse.
We were really crushed when we got the news from George that he shipped down and had a temperature and wasn't going to be able to run, and so George and Cindy rode with him in the trailer. They were emotional. We were emotional. It was such a shame that he didn't get to run. I love Ron Moquette, Whitmore, what a horse, and everything else. But we would have loved to have taken our chances, in that race that day. And I agree. I don't think anybody was going to beat Vacoma that day. And George gets all the credit, 100% of the credit for that horse being here at Spendthrift because us, like everybody else, I mean, you watch that horse come down the stretch and you're like, well, he's got to be so crooked. There's got to be something, that would make him difficult to be able to stand him. And so, you've got that in your head. And, George called and he said, Tooth, he said, why haven't you been up here to see this horse? And I said, George, he's got to be like crazy crooked. And he said, oh, he said, you think I would buy a horse like that? I'm not buying a horse like that. He said, a horse walks right at you. He said, we didn't realize he did any of that until we breezed him. And then we were like, well, what's going on? He said, listen, fly up here. I'll pick you up at the airport. I'm going to take you over to the track. I will show you Vacoma myself. We'll go get some lunch and I'll take you back to the airport. And he said, I'll guarantee you're going to love this horse. And everything he said was exactly right. I looked at him. I'm like, my gosh. I mean, he comes at you great. He's such a great bodied horse. And breeders jumped in there when they came out and saw him. It was funny. You'd watch people look at him and they would have you walk him a couple of times because they didn't want to believe their own eyes because they knew how he ran. And so they had this preconceived notion that he had to be, awful crooked like we all did. And then, walk him again. And boy, they're watching close, to see what in the world would make him paddle like that. But you can't tell. I mean, he does it out of the shoulder, and there's nothing you can watch this horse walk and do out here that would tell you, he's going to paddle that left front. Well, so he's certainly not throwing anything along that lines. He's throwing these great bodies, and every one of these guys that pinhook here, and that's how so much of their income is derived from. they've seen these things, they've bought these things, and they want to continue buying them. And the ones that have brood mares want to keep continuing to breed to him. So Vacoma has a huge chance of making it. And, Candy Ride has been just an awesome sire. And, you look at all of his sons standing at stud and you're just, you're like, my gosh, he's got so much going on. And so we're excited about Vacoma's chances. We're excited about our breeders that are thrilled to get back to breed to him in 2024. And we've got him. We got Rock Your World, another son of Candy Ride that had immense talent and kind of went off the rails, but big pedigree, big stretchy horse. He's kind of the opposite of Vacoma. Vacoma's a big hip, powerful made horse, and Rock Your World's a big, tall, stretchy horse. He's out of an Empire Maker mare, and he really looks more like an Empire Maker. So, if a breeder's breeding to one of those horses, they're not breeding to the other with the same mare. So they're a very good fit here. They don't compete against each other for the same type mare.
Well, I'd imagine that the stallions are all exciting and that's fine. But there's a filly out on the West Coast. I'd imagine that the purple and orange are pretty excited about with Tamara.
Well, touch wood, that she stays sound and everything is good. And anytime you name a horse after a family member, in this case Tamara, being Wayne's daughter, and that's you're putting an immense amount of pressure, on a horse. Every time I named one after my wife or one of my kids, it didn't make it to the races, or it couldn't outrun me and somebody in a sack race. But that this filly had shown some talent down at Rolls, down at King's Equine. Richard always normally, we keep everything out of that mare. We did sell the curve out of her this year, but up until that point, we've kept everything, and what we've kept has always went to Richard. But you know, it's a great story on how that all came to be. Um, we when we wanted to buy Bolt Doro, Mr. Hughes and I flew to California. We met with Mick Ruiz out there. Mick wanted to stay in on the horse. He didn't want to sell all of him, and so Wayne, being a great negotiator, we worked out the outline for a deal. Uh, Mick was extremely happy to be partners with Wayne. Wayne, we love the horse to be a big stretchy, Medaglia d'Oro that wins two grade ones at 2 with a pedigree like his out of an AP Indy mare. He was doing things that his pedigree said he shouldn't have been able to do. So a horse that we really wanted to get. And so, Mick bought a farm out here in Kentucky, and Mick went all in. Mr. Hughes told him, Mick, don't do that. But he believed wholeheartedly in the horse. And he's like, no, Wayne, I'm telling you, Bolt's going to make it. Bolt's going to make it. And so, Mick was breeding 20, 30 mares a year to him. And we were breeding a handful of mares to him, and it was going to be a second year standing here for us. And Mick came in and sat down with Wayne, and Wayne, just in his typical Wayne Hughes fashion, he told him, he said, Mick, he said, listen, you've been carrying all the water on this horse. You've been doing all the heavy lifting. And he said, we've been sitting on our butt around over here. And he said, but we need to be a better partner to you. And so I just want to tell you that we're going to breed Bolt to Beholder. And Mick's jaw hit the ground, and I think some of ours hit the ground, because here's a horse, we're going to be standing for $15,000. And we had bred Beholder to Uncle Mo and Curlin and Warfront, and so to go from stallion standing at that level to going to a stallion standing at the $15,000 level, that was a big commitment, for Wayne and for the farm, and but it was huge for us sales guys, because then you could tell everybody that, listen, we're breeding Beholders going to Bolt, so you sure should be breeding to Bolt. If we're going to breed her to him, you need to think about that. And it was, it certainly helped us sell him out, in a hurry. And then, you get this filly and you're excited that you've got her. And then, for her to go down to Ocala and start being broke. And then, we had, quite a few yearlings at the time. And then for Raul to, told me up at the Maryland sale, at the 2-year-old sale, he goes, I'm telling you that Bolt filly's the best of anything you've got. You get excited, and then she goes out there to Richard, and she's breezing great, and then to stumble away from there, and Mike just keep his cool and sit the trip and win with her, and then you come back into the grade 1, and Bob Baffert had called, and we just got Taba in here the other day, and so there'd been some conversations back and forth on whether he's going to make it back to the races or not, and ultimately it was decided he wasn't, and so we've got him here and been showing him. But during that conversation, he said, you guys are going to win the debutante, and we're like, you really think so? And he goes, well, I'll tell you, I'm not entering a horse in the race. I'm not running anything against her because I don't have anything that can beat her. And so when Bob's telling you that, you're like, my gosh, he's out here watching her train every day. And sure enough, for her to run the race that she ran that day, and she just, took off. That's like a lot of people say, like Beholder did in the Pacific Classic, at kind of the same spot. She hit the go button and was gone. And it's she certainly. I wouldn't trade places with anybody in the juvenile fillies. I would. I think we would just, hold her cards right there with what we got and take her shot, because she sure looks to be talented.
It's really funny. Like you think you send Beholder to this one and that one and the biggest stallions you can think of, and then like you said, you send him to the old $15,000 Bolt Doro, and it turns out that at this point the best one. It's crazy how that works.
It is, and that's a total Wayne deal, and he gets all the credit, and I know he's smiling, and that's it's his belief, and Wayne was a businessman through and through, and he had partners in public storage back in the beginning, and he's a guy that if he was partners with you, he wanted to do his part. And I felt like, and all of us did, that, that was him, wanting to show our partner, that I'm a good partner, and, I'm willing to take a shot here, and, we'll see what happens. So we're excited on Bolt because that race, Bolt's a funny horse. He's a horse that, you can only breed him a couple of times a day, and you have to kind of manage him on how you do that. And he's a real fertile horse, but you've just got to kind of do things his way. And we've got a great operation. Wayne Howard, our stallion manager, has just done a super job coming up with a great way of breeding him. And we've got these great big straw bales, JK, that like you have to move them with a tractor. And so he basically has his own barn and his own breeding shed, and then he's got a gelding over there that's his buddy, and so he's in a real happy place over there. But we basically hook 2 lunge lines to him, and he's got 2 handlers that when we breed him, and they stand on the outside of the straw bales. And so the mare's situated, and Bolt comes in there and jumps on the mare, and but we can't get in there and put him in the mare, and we can't get a what we call a dismount sample, where we get a little bit of the semen that comes out of him after he gets off of the mare. Sometimes you can on a mare that needs a little extra help, you can, as long as the stallion covers her, and then you can actually put that semen back in her, and as what they call in the thoroughbred business, just reinforcing the mare. Well, none of that's possible with Bolt. So we have to be careful on the mares that we book to him, because if a mare's tilted, in her female private parts back there, then he can't get in them. And so he has to have a mare that's kind of a medium-sized mare that he can get up on, get in her, and stay up on her. Some of these tall mares that kind of have a high pelvic bone or something, he's not comfortable up on them, and so he just, he'll get up on them, but he'll just slide right off of them immediately when he ejaculates. And so, we don't feel like we get all of the semen in them that we're, trying to get to help our pregnancy rate. So, we love, kind of medium-sized mares, and then Bolt to just stay up on top of them until you pull him off of those mares. So it's a unique way of having to do it. It's different than any other stallion that we've got here, but it's all worth it. You keep getting runners the way he's getting. You deal with it, and you make it work, and we've got him sold out for the 2024 season, and he's going to get a great book of mares, and we'll hope there's another grade 1 winner like Tamra, there in the pipeline.
Mark, how did you? What was your path to ending up at Spendthrift?
Oh, I'm telling you, I'm Forrest Gump, JK, of the horse business. I've done it all, and for me to wind up here at Spendthrift was a miracle. Yeah, really. I mean, it was an absolute miracle. I quit college. I walked hots. I worked for Joe Canny. Joe gets a divorce. The horses start leaving. Danny Pites, his assistant, they were moving them to other bigger name trainers, and I was buddies with Jeff Lucas. We played softball together up at Belmont, and so luckily, Jeff took a shot on me, let me go to work for them. Went to Oaklawn when they opened, sent their first string there with Randy Bradshaw and Dallas Stewart, and had so many memories, working for Wayne. I saw us run 10th, 12th, and last in the Derby, and then the next year, Winning Colors wins it. And so, you get to see, both ends of the spectrum. But I did the horses, and my dad was a small town mayor, Van Buren, Arkansas. He had cows, and he loved to go to the races. And what sparked all that is I was like 15 years old, and we just finished basketball season, and told my dad, I said, Dad, I'd love to go to Oaklawn. He said, son, you're not old enough. And I said, well, Dad, surely I can get in. He said, well, what if you can't? Well, I said, well, I'll just hang out at the car. So I wind up down at Oaklawn and walk in the place, and buddy of his was the sheriff there in Crawford County, and he told me, he said, Mark, you need to bet the double. And I said, well, what's that? And he goes, well, it's the first 2 races. And at the time, that was the only exotic race that Oaklawn had. They had win, place, and show and a daily double. They had nothing else. You couldn't bet exactas. You couldn't bet a pick 6, anything. It was just, that was it. And I said, well, Mr. Vickery, what would I bet? He said, oh, son, you bet your age, 1-5. And so I bet a $2 daily double, and 1-5 comes in. It pays $372, and I was ruined. From that point on, I thought this is the greatest thing ever in the history. I mean, my gosh. And so I've gave that $372 back, about a million times. But it was, it certainly got me in the game, and then I wanted to figure out how to get in it, but as time went on, my dad was like, son, why don't you come home, get off the track? And so I did. And I sold real estate for a few years for a friend of his there that was a big developer. And I was at Oaklawn one day, and I run into a guy that I knew off the track. And he told me, he said, he goes, why don't you come down to the 2-year-old sale at Lone Star? And I said, well, Rick, I've never even been to a sale. He said, oh, I'm telling you, you'll love it. And so I'd just been married like less than a year. And so I told my wife, I said, look, I'm going to go down to Lone Star to this horse sale. And she's like, why? And I said, well, I want to go down and check it out. And she said, yeah, okay, but why? And, here, she's married this guy that sells real estate, and, we got a house, and we're hustling and all this other stuff. And now here I'm off to a horse sale, and I go down there and spend 2 or 3 days, and Al Pike and Rick Cundiff, Rick's the one that introduced me to Al, and they were partners. And, they sell a horse for like $350,000 to Asmussen down there at the sale, a Rubiano filly. And I called my wife, and I'm like, honey, I've got to figure out how to do this, because if Al and Rick can do it, I know I can do it. And so that led me into the selling business, the breeding side of the business. We had a little farm in Arkansas that from a guy that was retiring, and we're there standing a couple of stallions and trying to learn the game. And Alan Poindexter, who has had tons of success in this business, Alan, I was boarding some mares for him for his Arkansas bred program, and Alan pulls in there one day and says, "Hey, if I bought a farm in Kentucky, would you come run it?" And I was like, "Yeah, yesterday. But Alan, I got to sell this place." Well, the good Lord blessed us. We sold the farm. My wife, you know, thank God for her. She was okay, and so two kids and a wife. We moved to Kentucky. We're running a farm in Midway. I get a call from Des Dempsey, and Des was working for Spendthrift at the time before Mr. Hughes bought the farm. And so Des calls me and says, "Hey, would you guys take some mares to board?" And I said, "Well, yeah, what's up?" And he said, "Well, Spendthrift is being bought by B. Wayne Hughes, and he doesn't want any boarders. And so all the boarders here have got to leave. And I was wondering if you wanted some." And so we were like, "Yeah, sure." And so, 4 or 5 mares from Spendthrift showed up out at our place at Midway, and once Wayne and Patty had the farm, wanted a chance to come meet them, and had a chance to talk to Wayne. And I just told him, I said, "Wayne, I'm not tailor made. I'm not one of these big consigning companies or anything along that line, but I've got a lot of hustle, and I'd love to, sell horses for you, or get involved with what you're doing." And he said, "Well, are you working for you got a relationship with any other stallion farms up here?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "All right, well, I'm going to start building a stallion roster at Spendthrift, and I'm going to make you a deal. You help me hustle mares for my stallions, I'm going to give you horses to sell. But if you quit sending me mares, I'm going to quit sending you horses." And we shook hands, and that was just an easiest way of doing it. Is Wayne wasn't looking for anything in writing. He just wanted a handshake and a look in the eyes. And so then, every horse that Wayne was trying to get started over here, I was calling everybody that I'd done business with, or anybody I thought that might do business with me, and was trying to get them to come over here and breed at Spendthrift. And as time went along, 2008 hit. It cut every horse's value in half. Uh, I was selling horses with Tommy Eastham, a friend of mine. We had this legacy bloodstock together. Things were rough. We were just trying to survive, and Wayne approached me and just said, "Hey, listen, I think we're at that point now where I can bring you over there full time." And so I laugh and say, he made an offer that my wife couldn't refuse. And you're going to have insurance, you're going to have a 401k plan, you're going to get a weekly check. And at that time, the horse business had been rough on us, and it was the shot in the arm that we needed, and was extremely humbled to be able to come over here full time. And it's been a wild ride. It was funny. We had some stallions that we were just trying to prove them, and they weren't the top shelf horses. And we gave Wayne, I remember in a sales meeting, we'd always do sales meetings on Monday, and we gave him our wish list. And he looked at it and he said, "You all are trying to turn us into WinStar." And we said, "Yes, we are, because we want to go get these better stallions to be able to move us up from where we've been playing." And so he had in his mind, he liked buying them for not a ton of money, and he loved the return on investment if you could get something to work out. But he had faith in our team, and he was willing to step up and put money up, and buy horses like Omaha Beach, and then go get Authentic there, because we felt like he was into Mischief's best shot at a Derby horse. And just Wayne saw the return on his investment. He knew that our team was going to do everything within our power to make him money on his money. And then, the deals got easier to pitch to him, when he realized that, hey, these guys, I got a good team here. And God bless Eric and Tammy Gustafson, because they were able to kind of witness the blast off of what we were doing, and they've just been the best. That if we bring them something and say this is what we'd like to do, if we can make the numbers work, Eric and Tammy, are willing to take a shot, and that's made my job and my sales team's job extremely easy.
Now, Mark, the process, you talked a little bit about the Vacoma situation with George reaching out to you, but just typically when you're trying to find your kind of your next stallion, and I'd imagine it's the same for you guys, for Windstar, for Ashford, for Claiborne. It's all kind of the same process, I would imagine. But what does that process look like? I mean, when these 2-year-olds start winning grade ones, do you start having conversations at that point? Is it a 3-year-old thing? And kind of what's the behind the scenes of acquiring a stallion to stand at Spendthrift?
Well, we definitely start putting them on the radar when they break their maiden. We'd love to see a 2-year-old that breaks their maiden impressively, and when they do that, then we put them on our watch list, is what we call it. And then we'll determine as we move along, is this a horse that we want to try to buy a piece of? Is this a horse that we want to try to acquire the breeding rights? And it's tricky because there was a horse that won, very impressive up at Saratoga this year, Ghost Sapper horse that Deuce Greathouse had, and but he had not won a grade one yet. And so, we were very interested, but we were interested in buying a piece of the racing rights. Well, that doesn't always play in tune with what the owners are trying to do on their end, because now all of a sudden, if Spendthrift is part ownership on the horse, then it makes them trying to get a deal with somebody else more difficult. And I get it, but we're also are trying to buy, if we're doing that, we're trying to buy in on a horse that we feel like has got some talent and that can go on and, and be a horse. Well, nothing worked out at the time, on that horse, and we'll just follow him along and see what he does, moving forward. He had a little setback there and didn't get to run in the Hopeful, and, hopefully he'll get back to the races for those guys. But with any of them, we start following along at that point. Sometimes, we get some, some inside information, because we're talking to the trainers, talking to, the folks involved with them about, how good is this horse? What do you think of this horse? Does this horse, do you think he's a horse that can, get to the grade one level? And, all of that just kind of factors in. But really for us, if we're going to do a breeding right deal, for the most part, not all of our horses that we have here are grade one winners when we do a deal, but for the most part they are. And then that's when we really start talking to them about trying to get something done. Of course, you've got a lot of competition at that point, as you mentioned. Everybody's chasing these same horses, and so that's a battle, on these things. And you've got some deep pocketed farms. I mean, we've been outrun on several that we tried to chase after, but it was really the valuations that we put on the horse. We thought a horse could stand for X amount of dollars, and the farm that wound up getting the horse had a higher valuation. They felt like the horse could stand for more money, and a lot of times that's what it comes down to. But we'll try to be there to watch these horses run. When we chased Matoli, we were at Churchill over there talking to Bill and Korean. We go to the Met Mile, we're there talking to them, and just working on trying to build that relationship and hopefully be able to put enough dollars in front of them that that we land the horse. But it all starts with seeing a very impressive horse breaking its maiden. Mr. Hughes used to always say, he goes, I'm just looking for that wow performance. A horse needs to have a wow performance for us to really, zero in on that horse. And so that's what we try to look for. I remember on Omaha Beach, I flew down to Oaklawn for the Rebel. And of course, Richard Mandela is trained for Spendthrift for forever. And Richard is as good as they get. And, you know, he had trained and he was grazing him outside the barn there. And he said, he goes, I think he's the best horse I've ever trained. And when Richard Mandela tells you that, you're like, what? You know, because you start thinking about all of the great horses that Richard's trained. And he's saying, I think this might be the best horse I've ever trained. Well, you know, that was the immediate call to Wayne, is that, listen, I'm just telling you, you know, Richard's not a BSer. Richard's a straight shooter. And Richard believes this wholeheartedly. And I think we got to try to figure out how to buy this horse. And you know, Omaha Beach had everybody after him. You know, Godolphin's trying to buy him. Everybody. You know, Claiborne, Gainesway, on and on and on. Just had all our competitors trying to get it in. And so Wayne just said, you know, we can't do a regular offer on this horse. He said, we're not going to be able to get him. Somebody else is going to wind up getting the horse. And so we did a huge front end loaded deal to where, you know, our kickers were very little bitty kickers. I mean, not many kickers at all in the deal, but a huge amount of money up front. And so that got us the horse. I mean, it was just Wayne blew him away, basically. Mr. Porter's a hard negotiator, and God rest his soul, but you know, he and Wayne were somewhat friends. Wayne had helped him some with some medical issues, you know, there when he'd gotten a bad prognosis, but Wayne didn't want that to lean on us getting the horse. So Wayne, you know, gave him an offer that blew all the competitors out of the water. And you know, we're thrilled to death that we've got Omaha here, and the way these horses have sold, and the belief that trainers and owners are putting in Omaha. You know, you feel like the future is very bright.
Would you consider Spendthrift a stallion making farm first, and basically what the goal is always to kind of elevate the stallions? You know, you'll race the mares, but in order to get good mares that can elevate stallions, or is there still kind of a racing experience portion of what you guys do at Spendthrift?
Well, it's changed a little bit as we've gone along here with Eric and Tammy taking over. You know, Wayne would race some horses, but Wayne really wanted the money. He wanted to sell. He didn't really want to race a bunch of horses. You know, we maybe, you know, had 6, 7, 8 horses in training, you know, when Wayne was living. You know, maybe there was times we had a few more than that, but Wayne loved the racing, but he didn't want many of them. And as we've progressed now to his daughter and her husband, Eric, you know, they have more of a passion for racing. They like racing. They like going to the track on the big days. They like having horses in on those days. And so we have become a lot more of a racing farm as far as us going out and acquiring yearlings. You know, we bought quite a few out of the sale here at Keeneland through the first 2 books. We partnered with several different people, from the Colts group to Mike Rapoli and Vinny Viola and several others. I don't want to leave anybody out, but those are the ones that, you know, kind of come to mind first. And so, you know, Spendthrift has a lot more horses in training now than we used to have. So that's definitely an arm of the farm. It's definitely an exciting part. We'd love to be able to, you know, buy a yearling that turns into a stallion prospect for us. And in the case of Tamara, you know, here we've got a filly that we bred that's going to, you know, turn out to be a great asset, with her being a grade 1 winner to our broodmare band one day. But the stallion business is where I live. I love watching our horses race, but really the racing end of Spendthrift doesn't have anything to do with me. In all honesty, what they pay me for is to help them acquire stallion prospects, help identify those, and then if we acquire them, to be on the phone talking to breeders all day and, getting as many mares possible to that horse to give them every chance, to make it or not make it as a stallion, but not be lack of mares, be the reason that the horse didn't get a fair shake. And so that's my focus is trying to find that next big stallion that can come in here. We have Taba that's now here at the farm for this year. He sold out in about 10 minutes. JK, didn't take us long there to be sold out. We realized within about 20 minutes of announcing the stud fee on Taba that we might have underpriced him a little bit because, it just everybody you talk to, save me one, save me two. And we wind up having so many requests that, we've only been able to give breeders, just one spot to Taba, which is, difficult because we've got a lot of people that we're going to have to call this week to tell them that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get them in there. When you got a horse in this much demand, you've got to look out for your bigger breeders that take care of your other stallions as well, that are breeding to Into Mischief, breeding to Authentic, breeding to Vacoma, that are big supporters of other stuff you're doing. And those are the ones, that are going to wind up, getting the contracts. And, we'll have Zandon. Zandon's going to run in the Woodward. He's a horse that won the Bluegrass. He was second in the Met, second in the Whitney. Going to run Saturday. Hopefully he can win the Woodward and then head on with some momentum out to the Breeders' Cup Classic. He'll arrive here after the Breeders' Cup. And then Arabian Lion, beautiful son of Justify. He may run in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship this weekend. I think that's along the lines Bob was thinking. But he's a horse that, either run in the Breeders' Cup Sprint or the mile. And, you got the Malibu sitting out there in his backyard the day after Christmas. And, that's also a grade one you'd like to pick up. It's been a good sire making race. It's been a great race for a lot of different stallion farms. So, I think that's a thought. He's not a horse that, we're up against it. He'll sell out extremely fast once we get him here. So, if they need to run him in that, and then, we'll see what happens if anything else pops up. I mean, we're in talks on a few more horses, and, the Breeders' Cup's Classic is going to dictate some of that on what shakes loose and who might race next year and who might retire. And, we'll have our hat thrown in the ring on a couple of those out there if they were to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. So we're just working on a roster of 3 right now, and maybe potentially we'll have 4 when we start the 2024 season.
Mark, the last thing I just kind of wanted to touch on in your role as a stallion sales manager. What kind of break out your year and kind of the important times, and if you want to kind of work in a 365 starting point from here, but like from this point, what is your main objective? What are you working on the most? What are your days looking like? And then when does that transition to something else, and so on and so forth? What does a year look like for you?
Well, so we, off of Tamara's win out in California, that let us be able to get Bolt booked up. So then Taba arrives. And so now all this week I'm working on getting, and my sales guys, we're just getting our contracts out to everybody that's going to get a Taba season right now. We're going to do 155 spots on him. Spencer is keeping 15 spots for Ned to breed on, and the ownership group has got 10 breeding rights in the horse. So we have 155 spots to Taba. My hope is all 155 of those contracts go out the door, this week. Once we get that put to bed, we'll see what happens as we've got these Breeders' Cup preps coming up. But, we've got to get our heads together on what we're going to price Maximus, Vino, Matoli, and Omaha at for 2024. So hopefully we'll know more about that. We'll be able to come to a consensus of what we want to price those at. As soon as we price those, then it's just going to be immediately on the phone. We've got lists already started of people that said, hold me an Omaha, hold me a Vino, hold me a Maximus Mischief. So we'll be getting back to those folks. This is the price. This is where we're at. Are you comfortable? Are we good to go ahead and send you a contract? And then, as we progress more, toward November sale, mares are changing hands, more business being done. We're just all out, JK, from here out until really probably the first week or two in May. We're doing contracts, we're doing seasons, we're on the phone, we're talking to breeders, we're going to the sales, we're shaking hands and kissing babies, and we're just doing anything we can to get people to breed with us and not our competitors. And, as Mr. Hughes said, he goes, I don't want to put those guys out of business. I just want to damage them. And so, we do everything we can to try to get as much business over here. Once we get to about the middle of May, things will start slowing down for us. Then it's just doing some cleanup work on some contracts that maybe something Mayor didn't do right, and we want to go a different direction, or we want to switch stallions and do something along that line. And then we kind of get, if anybody's taking vacation around here, we take it in the month of July outside of the week of the Facing-Tipton sale. And then, we get back, we get geared up to go to Saratoga. And when Saratoga rolls around, we're right back in sales mode. And we're moving forward then for 2025 when next August gets here. And, it's a thrill to go up there to Saratoga. We so enjoy you on the show and watching the bickering back and forth sometimes with Andy and Tom, whoever's on the show. We all get a big kick out of watching that. And, all of us, one of the highlights for us of the year is going to Saratoga. We had a gentleman that was kind of running the show over here when I first came over here, and he didn't want to do his pricing or anything for us until closer to the November sale. And Mr. Hughes just didn't like that. He didn't like waiting. He wanted to take advantage of situations. And so, he said, well, you want to go to Saratoga? And of course we all said yes. And he said, well, then that's when we're going to start selling seasons. And so that's what we've done for years and years. Saratoga, we get it kicked off. And most of the time, JK, we have booked 1,000 mares in over here before any of our competitors start. And that's a huge advantage for us, taking these mares, out of the pipeline and going ahead and having them locked in with us. And it's something we look forward to getting up there and getting as many deals done at Saratoga, and then just keeping that momentum as we move forward. And had a great time up there. George has got Miss Domina that I bred with Jacob Tammy, that played 12 or 13 years in the NFL, and she has won 3 years in a row at Saratoga while I've been up there for the sale. And it's crazy. George always has her geared up and ready to go. It seems like that week. And I always walk over there, go in the paddock, and then walk in the winner's circle with those guys. And so, that's huge fun up there. And anytime you're hanging out with Randy Hills, you're in for a good time. And we've been blessed with the Wine Steward, winning a race up there this year. And we had virtual reality Breaker Maiden up there in New York this year. And unfortunately, in the match race, we figured out that the French jockey probably hadn't rode many match races. And then we had Rocket and Roll break his maiden up there, a son of Bolt Doro that Keith Crupper, a good friend of mine, bred. And so, we had a lot of highlights at Saratoga, and we hope there's some more highlights, for the handful of horses out there running that we were fortunate enough to breed.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to share what you guys have going on at Spendthrift, and to talk a little bit about the day in the life. It's a for a lot of the horse players, it's the one part of the game I think that's it's the hardest for all of us to wrap our brains around, because it's not what we do every day. But hearing all the behind the scenes is always a lot of fun, and getting excited about these stallions that we all watched race, and now we get to watch them be daddies. And then, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm thinking that Tamara is going to be a large part of my Breeders' Cup. I think she looks like she might be pretty special.
Well, she does, and I know Richard had went back and forth about whether to runner in the chandelier or wait on the Breeders' Cup. And he kind of announced the other day that he thinks he's just going to wait on the Breeders' Cup. They downgraded the chandelier to a grade 2. And I don't know how that weighed in all of the conversation, but she's got her grade 1 win, and now, if she can knock out this next one in the Breeders' Cup, then she's not only another grade 1 win, but she's champion 2-year-old filly. And that's that's just a huge update to any horse's resume. And I think you're on the right track. And JK, thank you again for all you do for promoting our sport. I mean, your shirts are everywhere. I've got 2 of them in my closet. And I just, I so appreciate all you do for horse racing and all of your followers and fans. I know we all feel the same way. Just keep doing what you're doing, and we're all watching and cheering along.
Mark, I appreciate that, and I really I want to say I appreciate you taking the time. And we'll see you at Santa Anita.
All right, we look forward to it. Hey, have a great one. Thanks for including me.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I always learn. It's my favorite part of the industry to kind of learn more about, which is like the breeding, sales, stallion side of things. It's so interesting. It's how all of these things come together, and it's an interesting thing, trying to get these stallions to mares and hope they run fast and hope they run well. And then it's interesting how one good horse can kind of really get a stallion going. I think it's super interesting. And I'm really appreciative of Mark taking the time and kind of walking us through the roster. It's Spendthrift. I hadn't looked at their roster in a while, man. They got a lot of really cool horses that I loved on the racetrack. Excited to see them in their next careers. And then, I mean, honestly, it's kind of an interesting conversation to have, but intriguing, the conversation about Bolt Doro and how specific he is in doing his job as a stallion. Like I said, I want to thank Mark. I want to thank our friends at Qatar Racing for their support. Excited to see what's next for Everso Mischievous. Excited to see what's next for Caravel. Excited to see what's next for is it the maroon and gold? Do they call it maroon? I should probably check with Sheikh Fahad and see if it's maroon. It looks maroon to me. I'm going to go with maroon. Maybe it's not, but I'm going to go with maroon. It makes sense to me. Want to thank everybody for listening. Want to thanks for sticking with us during our little vacation break. Like I said, we're back, so expect an episode every week. If you have some ideas of some people you'd like to hear on the show, hit me up on Twitter and let me know who that might be, and see if we can't get them on. This was Mark Toothaker was actually an idea from one of our friends, Reagan Swinbank, who wanted to kind of know a little bit more about some sale stallion stuff. He's heavily involved now and thought that Mark would be a great idea. And so I'm glad that he had that idea. So let me know if you have any other ideas of who we should have on. We've got a long list of people we're going to get in before the end of the year, but I'll always take suggestions. Want to thank PTF, want to thank Drew, want to thank everyone else on the network with a podcast. And thank you all the most for listening, supporting, retweeting, tweeting, sharing, liking, favoriting, all of those actions that you can do. We'll see you next week.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. Now you be surprised at the info you get is by letting them talk, so I'm letting them talk.